Dear brothers and sisters, as we all gather here today, I'd like to talk about spiritual awakening. How do we awaken spiritually? Generally, when you go to sleep, we either get up by an alarm clock, or as children, our moms are waking us up, or someone is there who helps us get up from the slumber. And so, as we think about spiritual awakening, it's being awakened into the spiritual arena. It's realizing that we're in a state where we're asleep to the spiritual aspects of our being. It's realizing that even though we all might think we're awake, we're really sleeping. Is a realization that we might be awake in one aspect of our being, but be sleeping in another. So it's difficult to understand how being awake and sleeping can work at the same time. But today you have many new things happening in your lives. You all have computers. And you all, as you work through Windows. Or you have programs which are working in the background, kind of look asleep to you. And you have others in which you're active. And when you're active in one, then you are not active in another one. Because you're only active in one at the same time, where your attention is, what you're looking at. What are you watching? What are you seeing? Other things might be happening, but they're not, coming in front of you. And so, when we think that we are very awake in the world outside, actually we are sleeping in the spiritual arena. Because more attention we have into the activities of the world, the less focused we are to the realities of our existence. We all in this world think that we live at the level of our senses. Everything that happens to us, we feel happens through our senses, the sense of sight, hearing, smell, taste and touch. And everything that happens through those senses we feel to be real. Little do we realize that these are all senses, these are all physical senses which make us interact with the physical world. And all of these senses are not helping us an iota in the spiritual arena. So how do we awaken spiritually? First we need to realize we are sleeping, then only we can be awakened. It's just like how many times when you were a kid and someone tries to wake you up and you don't want to get up, and you pretend you're sleeping, but you're really awake. And so you're never opening your eyes, and they pick you up, even throw cold water on you, but this has happened. And so first we need to realize what state we are in. And that realization is the beginning of our spiritual journey. Awakening spiritually is what each and every one of us need to go through to experience the eternal existence of our being. As we were kids, we were all, I'm sure many of you are born in this country or might be in another country and came here. You went to school either here or in other countries. But I think in most countries, you hear the tale of the Sleeping Beauty. At least in India we did when we were kids. It's a popular tale told to the kids, learn it in school. And so the Sleeping Beauty was sleeping for, over 100 years or something, long time. And so a Prince Charming came and awoke her. And that was her means of getting awakened. And so our soul has been sleeping and sleeping and sleeping in a deep slumber for eons and eons, for thousands and thousands of years. It's been transmigrating from one existence to another, and in most of those existences which are not the humankind, it had no means to awaken. So once we are in the human existence, now we have an opportunity to be awakened. And just like the prince came to awaken the Sleeping Beauty, the grace, the love of the saints and the mystics comes to awaken our spirit or our soul. Spiritual awakening is awakening our spirit. Spiritual awakening is experiencing our soul. Spiritual awakening is going on the journey to unfold what we really are. And so spiritual awakening does happen, can happen in each and every one of our lives. Spiritual awakening is not limited to just a few. It's a question of, do we want to get awake? We want to be like the child who doesn't want to be awakened, even though everyone's trying to have the child be awoke. Then it becomes difficult to awake a child who thinks he's awake already. So first we need to realize that we are in that state, and that happens when we realize that there are activities that are happening which are beyond what we experience through our physical senses. That there's a life beyond this life, that there's an existence beyond this existence, that there is activity that happens which is above physical body consciousness or beyond physical body consciousness. We're so used to be living at the level of our physical senses that this aspect is difficult for us to understand. But once we experience it, then we know it's there. And so to experience that there is something beyond the physical existence is very, very important. And that experience comes through what we call meditation. And this is why in a spiritual awakening through meditation, that's a means by which we are going to experience ourselves as we are. That's a means by which we're going to find ourselves in a new realm. That's a means by which the journey of our soul will happen. And as it happens and we experience it by ourselves, then we don't need to read about it, we don't need to have someone talk about it to us, we don't need to be convinced by someone else. The conviction comes automatically because of that experience. And so meditative practices are what help us experience ourselves at that level of experiencing the spirit of the soul. As we look at our lives, we're kind of in a prison. We're all souls which are present in this human body. And as we are in this prison, it seems like there's no way to escape. And as we get caught in this prison, we find that it seems to be darker and darker and darker. saints and mystics who have the key to open the doorway so our soul can get out of this prison. They come here to help us. In the East and in the West, we read our scriptures, we read the writings of the great saints and mystics. They all come for one purpose. They come for us to know God. They come for us to be with God. They come for us to experience God. They come for us to go on the spiritual journey. They want our soul to be united with God. Sant Singh Ji Maharaj would often say, be good, do good, be one. So the goal is to be one, for the soul to be one with God. The way to get there is to be good and to do good. To be good, we need to inculcate the ethical virtues in our life. The virtues of love, the virtue of compassion, the virtue of non-violence, the virtue of truthfulness, the virtue of humility, the virtue of selfless service, the virtue of a pure and a chaste life. So these are virtues that we need to inculcate. So that's the do good. Then we need to be good. We need to be in a state where from us goodness comes out. That'll only happen if we are content, if we are happy on the inside. If we are frustrated and we have too many things to do and less time, or if we feel the burden of problems or trying to keep up with life, then we're never contented. If we're never contented, our responses are very, are like full of anger and very stressful and create more stress in the arena. But if we are fulfilled and if we are satisfied, then we will be good. So how are we fulfilled? Not by having more gadgets in the house, not by having more property, not by having more name and fame. What fulfills us is to be happy with what we have. If we get in a state where whatever we have is what fulfills us, keeps us happy, then we are in that state eternally. But if we get into that mode of trying to think and feel that only if I could get this, I'll be happy, if I could get that, I'll be happy, if I get that, I'll be happy, we'll never be happy. There's a limit to everything, and it's we think like it's in getting the gadgets or in getting, our financials to be better or our health to be better or our name and fame that we are going to get very happy. But when we get those things, things don't really change. And we only realize it when we get something. If we don't have it, we're always clamoring for it. When we have it, they say, it doesn't matter, what's the difference? And that's the state we need to be in. And those who are fulfilled are the ones who are good at art. Because, there's no craving for them, there's no desires for them, they don't need to get things for themselves. It's when we have desires to get things for ourselves that we create tensions and stresses and strains, not only in our lives but also in the lives of everyone else. And to spiritually awaken is to be in a state where we have become good. And it's when we do good and when we are good that we will become one. Sant Singh Ji Maharaj would often say, he would say, an ethical life is a stepping stone to spirituality. A life of goodness, where one is good and one does good, is just a stepping stone, it's the beginning. It's then that we start to go on the spiritual journey. Because the journey within is a journey of love. When you're in love, then everything is happy, everything is colorful, everything is good for you. And that's the state that we want to be in. And also, when one is in love, then there is no duality, there is only oneness. One saint has said, he says, Prem Gali Ati Sankari Jame Donasma. He says, the lane of love is so narrow, two cannot walk in it. So you have to be one to walk in the lane of love. And it is in that state that we become oblivious to our surroundings. So our soul needs to experience the love of God. Sandarshan Singh Ji Maharaj written a very beautiful verse which really explains this state. He says, मैं तो हो जाता हूँ गुम जलवाए जानाना में, यार बता कैसा है वो, तूने तो देखा होगा. So he's saying, I get lost in the beauty of the beloved, my eternal beloved. He's talking about his master, Hazur Baba Sawan Singh Ji Maharaj. And he says, I got, when I see my master, I'm totally in love. So I'm lost in love with the master. I'm oblivious to everything else. And so he's talking to his friend. He says, please tell me, your friend, you would have seen my beloved, you would have seen the master. What does the master look like? Because when I see the master, the only thing I see is light. I don't see anything else. I'm so lost in the love of the master that there is nothing else that I see or experience. And so that's the state that a true disciple should be in. Because when we are in that state, it's a state of spiritual love. It's a state of love that lasts and lasts and lasts. It's a state which is always going to be there. It's a state in which we then find our spiritual aspect opening up to us. And so as we look at our lives, and the teachings of the saints and the mystics always are laying a blueprint for us so we can go towards our goal. We find time and time again that the saints have always exhorted us to be in a state where we experience the love of God. And it's that state of love which changes the vision that we have. And that change comes in not through words, not through readings, but through the experience. And that's where meditation comes into play. So spiritual awakening through meditation is as we close our eyes and as we meditate, as we still the body and we still the mind, then we can get to a state where we are oblivious to our surroundings, where no thoughts are coming. Because thoughts are going to distract us into whatever thought we have. But when we focus our attention within, and we get to a state where our body is still and our mind is still and no thoughts are coming to us, is then that vistas of light, divine light, open up for us. And when those vistas open up for us, then we start to see ourselves in a new light. Start to see ourselves not as the body, but as soul, as spirit. And then as we cross the lights in the inner sky and the stars and the moon and the sun, we get to what is called the radiant form of a master. Now that is the form of the master from which light is emitting. And as we look into the eyes of this radiant form within, because this form becomes our inner guide, then our inner guide takes us on the inner spiritual journey. So we go from the physical to the astral. As we rise above the physical and get to the astral, in the experience of the divine power within, makes us happy, makes us calm, makes us joyous like we've never been before. As we go from the astral to the causal, we find more stillness, more joy, more happiness come to us. And then with the help of the Master Power, we cross the causal, and the lower three, the physical, the astral, and the causal. This in the East is called Kal Desh, which means this is the land of Kal, or land ruled by Kal. Then we go to what is called Dayal Desh, means this is the land of the Lord. This is land which is conscious. And at each one of these states that we find ourselves in, coverings which are surrounding our soul are being removed. So that when we get to Sachkhand, or the region of all truth, all the coverings which are surrounding our soul have been removed, and we experience ourselves as pure light, as pure consciousness, as pure love. And it is there that we first merge in the Master Power, and then the Master Power has a soul merge in God. So it's the spiritual journey which comes as we meditate that truly awakens us to the fact that we're not the body, we're not the mind, we're not the intellect. In reality, we are soul. It's only that experience which makes us be in that state. Otherwise, we are asleep to our spiritual being. Otherwise, our attention is always in this world. Otherwise, we're always thinking that we are the body, let's take care of the body, whether it be health-wise, whether it be any other ways. And if we look at our activities in this world, everything's focused on taking care of the body. What we need to do is take care of the soul. It's the soul that gives life to the body. If the soul is not healthy, the body will never be healthy. And if we can heal the soul or the spirit, and the healing of the soul or the spirit comes when it's nurtured with divine light and sound of God, when it's connected with the divine power of light and sound within. And so as the soul is healed, then the body, the mind, the intellect, everything will get healed. And that's what spiritual awakening is all about, to awaken to the fact that we are spirit, we are soul, and that awakening comes through experience. And that experience comes as we sit in silence, and that process called meditation. So meditation is the means by which we can awaken spiritually. Today also happens to be what Sant Singh Maharaj instituted in 1980 as a Master's Day. A day to celebrate our Master, whatever faith, whatever our beliefs are. A day to celebrate the one who helps us get closer to God. And as we are all gathered here today, let us realize, why do we celebrate the saints and the mystics, their lives or their birthdays? Because we know that they helped us. We want to focus on what their help was. We want to remember them, and we want that guidance in our life at all times. It's the guidance of the saints and mystics which makes us understand about life itself. It's the love which pulls it out of the shackles of the body and has a soul go on the spiritual journey. And it's the light which truly enlightens us so that all darkness is removed. Just like that story about the sun, when it went down into the cave which was very dark, the sun came in and there was no darkness at all. There's always light there. The same thing that happens with us. When our lives are touched by the grace of a saint or a mystic, then from within we are enlightened. The help and the support to our soul is there, whether we realize it or not. And so the unseen hand of the Lord is always guiding us towards our goal. The goal of each and every one of us is the same. And that goal is to be one with God. That goal is to have a soul merge in God. So as we all gather here today, it's my prayer to God Almighty and to the three great masters of the past century, Hazur Baba Savan Singh Ji Maharaj, Param Sant Kripal Singh Ji Maharaj, and the gracious Master Sant Singh Ji Maharaj, to help each and every one of us here be uplifted, be in a state where we are awakening spiritually, so that we are guided to the oneness with Lord.